The amber warning light on Dr. Elena Santos' environmental suit blinked persistently as she made her way through the crystalline forest of Kepler 186f. The atmospheric pressure was dropping again, a common occurrence on this alien world that had earned it the nickname, the breathing planet, among the research team. But Elena wasn't about to let a little pressure fluctuation stop her from completing her survey of the bioluminescent flora that made this section of the planet so spectacular. "Base, this is Santos," she reported, pausing to collect another sample from a crystal-like tree that pulsed with internal light. "The cellular structure of these organisms is unlike anything we've seen. They appear to be converting atmospheric pressure changes directly into energy." The radio crackled with static before her colleague's voice came through. "Copy that, Elena. But you're pushing your safe zone limit. Maybe call it a day." Elena smiled to herself. After 3 years as the lead xenobiologist on the first long-term research mission to Kepler 186f, she'd learned to trust her instincts about when to push and when to pull back. "Just one more sample, Marcus. There's something different about this grove." She moved deeper into the forest where the crystal trees grew denser, their pulses of light creating an almost hypnotic pattern. The readings on her handheld scanner were going crazy, showing energy signatures that defied conventional physics. That's when she saw it, a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but with a distinct purple tinge. The shimmer coalesced into a humanoid form, tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to capture and reflect the bioluminescence of the surrounding forest. The beam's eyes were pools of swirling energy, and when it moved, it left trails of light in its wake. "Fascinating." The creature spoke, its voice resonating directly in Elena's mind. "You venture so far from safety, wrapped in your fragile shell of technology. How typically human." Elena's heart raced, but years of training kicked in. First contact protocols were clear: remain calm, show no aggression, attempt communication. "I am Dr. Elena Santos of Earth's International Science Coalition. We come seeking knowledge and peaceful exchange." The being circled her, moving with impossible grace. "I am Nyx of the Luminary. We have watched your kind fumbling about our world for some time now. Such inefficient creatures, burning so much energy just to exist in an environment you're not suited for." Elena stood her ground, even as her suit's warnings became more insistent. "We may not be naturally adapted to this environment, but we found ways to overcome those limitations. That's what humans do. We adapt, we learn, we grow." Nyx made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sent shivers down Elena's spine. "Grow? Your species is barely more than children playing with forces you don't understand. Look at you now. Your protective shell is failing. Your biological systems are straining, and yet you persist in remaining here. Is this bravery or foolishness?" "Neither," Elena replied, keeping her voice steady despite the growing discomfort as her suit struggled to compensate for the pressure changes. "It's curiosity, a desire to understand. Something I suspect we might have in common, given how you're studying me right now." Nyx paused, those energy pool eyes fixing on Elena with new intensity. "Perhaps, but understanding requires more than mere observation. Would you truly risk yourself to learn about us, human?" Before Elena could respond, Nyx raised a luminescent hand. Energy crackled between them, and Elena's suit sensors went haywire. She felt a tingling sensation throughout her body, like static electricity but deeper, reaching into every cell. "Your biological energy signature is interesting," Nyx admitted. "Different from the simple patterns of your machines, but still so weak, so unfocused. How do you expect to survive among the stars like this?" Elena gritted her teeth against the sensation. "We don't expect survival to be handed to us. We work for it. We study, we experiment, we fail, and we try again. That's our strength." "Strong words from a species that needs artificial assistance just to breathe," Nyx countered, but there was something new in their tone. Curiosity, perhaps. Yet you speak of failure as if it's an advantage. Explain. Every failure teaches us something new, Elena said, forcing herself to remain standing as her suit's power fluctuated under whatever energy Nyx was emitting. We learn from our mistakes, adapt our approach, and come back stronger. It's not about being naturally perfect. It's about never stopping until we find a way. Nyx's form flickered, the purple energy swirling more intensely. An interesting perspective. Perhaps there is a way to test this theory of yours. Would you be willing to prove the worth of your species, Dr. Elena Santos? That depends, Elena answered carefully. What kind of test did you have in mind? One that will push the limits of your adaptive capabilities, Nyx replied, their form expanding until they towered over Elena. We luminary are beings of pure energy, existing in harmony with the natural forces of this world. If you truly wish to understand us, to prove that humans are more than primitive creatures stumbling through the cosmos, then you must learn to connect with these forces as we do. Elena's scientific mind raced with the implications. You're offering to teach me. I'm offering you a chance, Nyx corrected. Whether you learn or perish will depend entirely on your species' supposed adaptability. Be warned, many have tried to bond with the energy fields of our world. Most have failed. The rational part of Elena's brain told her this was dangerous, possibly suicidal. But the scientist in her, the part that had driven her across light years to study alien life, saw an opportunity that might never come again. I accept, she said firmly. When do we begin? Nyx's form pulsed with what might have been approval or amusement. We already have. Your suit's power systems are nearly depleted. Let's see how well you adapt to that, shall we? As if on cue, Elena's suit went dark, leaving her alone with an alien energy being in a forest of living crystals on a planet that was never meant to support human life. And somehow, despite the danger, or perhaps because of it, she smiled. The real research was about to begin. Elena's lungs burned as she struggled to breathe the thin atmosphere of Kepler 186f. Without her suit's environmental systems, the air was barely breathable, but she forced herself to remain conscious through sheer willpower. Nyx hovered nearby, their luminescent form pulsing with interest as they observed her struggle. Your biological functions are already failing, Nyx noted, their voice echoing in Elena's mind. Perhaps this was a mistake. I should return you to your base before. No, Elena gasped, pushing herself to her feet. The crystal trees around them seemed to pulse in sync with her racing heartbeat. I can handle it. Just tell me what I need to do. Nyx's form shifted, creating patterns of light that danced through the air. The luminary exists as pure energy, in perfect harmony with the natural forces of this world. To prove your worth, you must learn to sense these forces, to connect with them as we do. Elena's scientific mind raced despite her physical discomfort. Like the pressure fluctuations, the way these crystal trees convert them into energy. A basic observation. But yes, Nyx replied. Watch. The alien being moved closer to one of the crystal trees, their energy field extending to touch it. Immediately, the tree's bioluminescence intensified, creating a network of light that spread to nearby trees. The entire grove came alive with pulsing energy that made Elena's skin tingle. The trees aren't separate organisms, Elena realized, her breathing becoming slightly easier as she focused on the phenomenon before her. They're nodes in a larger energy network. Perhaps you're not entirely slow to learn, Nyx conceded, but understanding is not enough. You must become part of the network. Elena took a careful step toward the nearest crystal tree. How? I'm not an energy being like you. I can't just. Your species generates electromagnetic fields, Nyx interrupted. Crude and weak compared to ours, but present nonetheless. Focus on that energy within yourself. Feel its rhythm. Elena closed her eyes, trying to sense what Nyx described. At first, there was nothing but the sound of her own labored breathing and pounding heart. Then, gradually, she became aware of something else, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate with the crystal trees around her. Good, Nyx's voice echoed in her mind. Now extend that awareness outward. Reach for the energy around you. Elena stretched out her hand toward the nearest tree, concentrating on the strange vibration she felt. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her fingertips began to tingle, and she felt a sudden rush of something. Energy? Information. The sensation was overwhelming, flooding her consciousness with patterns and rhythms she couldn't begin to comprehend. She stumbled backward, gasping. What was that? Your first true contact with the energy network, Nyx explained, their tone holding a hint of surprise. Most species cannot achieve even that much without years of training, but you are still far from mastering it. Then teach me, Elena insisted, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Help me understand how it works. Understanding is not enough, Nyx repeated. You must learn to channel the energy, to become a conduit for it. Only then can you prove that humans are more than primitive beings playing with forces beyond their comprehension. Over the next several hours, Nyx guided Elena through a series of increasingly challenging exercises. They taught her to sense the subtle energy fluctuations in the atmosphere, to anticipate the pressure changes that made Kepler-186 breathe, and to draw upon the energy network of the crystal forest to help her body adapt. Each attempt left Elena exhausted, her muscles trembling and her mind reeling from the effort. But with each small success, she felt something changing within her. The air became slightly easier to breathe. The cold became more manageable. The energy patterns became clearer. You are persistent, Nyx observed as Elena recovered from another attempt to channel energy through the crystal network. But persistence alone will not be enough for what comes next. Elena wiped sweat from her brow, her hand leaving a faint trail of blue-white light in its wake, a phenomenon that both thrilled and terrified her. What comes next? The true test, Nyx replied, their form expanding until it filled Elena's field of vision. You have learned to touch the energy network, to draw upon it in small ways. Now you must learn to merge with it completely. Merge with it? Elena's voice cracked. That's not possible. Human biology isn't designed for. Precisely, Nyx interrupted. Your biology is a limitation. To survive here, to prove your species' worth, you must transcend it. Many have tried. All have failed. Elena looked at her hands, watching the faint traces of energy that now seemed to follow her movements. What Nyx was suggesting should be impossible. A complete integration of human consciousness with an alien energy network. The risks were unimaginable. But then again, humanity had achieved the impossible before. Every major scientific breakthrough in history had seemed impossible until someone proved otherwise. How do we begin? She asked. Nyx's form pulsed with what might have been approval. First, you must understand that there is no turning back. Once we start this process, either you will succeed in transforming yourself, or I'll die. Elena finished. She thought of her research team back at base, of all the protocols she was breaking, of the countless regulations against this kind of xenobiological integration. Then she thought of everything humanity could learn from this experience, if she survived it. I understand the risks, she said firmly. I accept them. Then let us begin, Nyx replied, their energy field expanding to surround Elena completely. Remember, human, your body is not just matter. It is energy given form. To survive what comes next, you must learn to exist as both. As Nyx's energy field enveloped her, Elena felt her consciousness expanding, touching the vast network of power that pulsed through Kepler-186 The true test of humanity's adaptability was about to begin, and she was determined to prove that humans were far more capable than the luminary believed. The crystal forest around them began to pulse with increasingly intense light, and Elena prepared herself for whatever transformation awaited her. She would either emerge from this changed forever, or she wouldn't emerge at all. The world dissolved into pure light and sensation as Nex's energy field merged with Alina's consciousness. Every cell in her body felt like it was being torn apart and reconstructed simultaneously. She wanted to scream, but her voice had become nothing more than another vibration in the vast network of energy surrounding her. Your physical form resists the transformation. Nex's thoughts echoed through her mind. Let go of it. Embrace the energy. Alina tried to focus, but the pain was overwhelming. Her human instincts screamed at her to fight against this invasion of her being, to cling to her physical form. Yet she knew that resistance would only lead to failure and likely death. Instead of fighting, she turned her scientist's mind to understanding what was happening to her. The energy network wasn't trying to destroy her body. It was trying to harmonize with it. The pain came from her own resistance, her body's natural defense against such fundamental change. That's it. Nyx encouraged, sensing her realization. Your mind begins to understand. Now make your body follow. Alina focused on her breathing, remembering her training in meditation and stress management. With each breath, she imagined her cells opening to the energy around her, becoming permeable to its flow rather than fighting against it. Gradually, the pain began to transform into something else, a tingling sensation that spread through her entire being. She became aware of new dimensions of perception, sensing the complex web of energy that connected everything on Kepler 186. Remarkable. Nex's voice held a note of genuine surprise. Your consciousness adapts more readily than expected. But the true test is still to come. The energy field intensified, and Alina felt herself being drawn deeper into the network. She could sense the crystal trees not as separate entities, but as nodes in a vast, living system. The planet's atmospheric pressure fluctuations became visible to her as waves of power flowing through this network. But something else caught her attention, a discordant pattern in the energy flow, like static in a radio signal. There's something wrong, she thought, hoping Nyx could hear her. The network, it's not flowing properly in this sector. You can sense that. Nyx's surprise was evident. Even some luminary cannot detect such subtle disruptions. Alina's scientific training kicked in, analyzing the pattern she was sensing. It's like a blockage in a circulatory system. The energy wants to flow, but something's preventing it. This is not part of your test, Nyx cautioned. Focus on maintaining your integration with the network. But Alina couldn't ignore what she was sensing. The disruption was causing strain throughout the entire local system, like a clogged artery threatening the health of a body. Without conscious thought, she extended her awareness toward the blockage. Stop, Nyx commanded. You are not ready for such manipulation. You will destroy yourself. Alina ignored the warning. Her consciousness touched the disrupted area, and immediately she understood the problem. A recent geological shift had misaligned one of the crystal formations, creating interference in the energy flow. The solution seemed obvious to her human mind. The energy needed an alternate pathway. Drawing upon everything she'd learned about the network, Alina focused her consciousness on creating a bridge around the blockage. It was like rewiring a circuit, but on a scale she could never have imagined before. She could feel the strain on her transformed consciousness, like a muscle being pushed to its absolute limit. Impossible. Nyx's voice echoed with disbelief. You cannot possibly. But Alina wasn't listening anymore. She was wholly focused on her task, using her human capacity for problem-solving in ways the luminary had never considered. Where they saw energy as something to be channeled, she saw it as something to be redirected and reorganized. With a sudden surge of power, the new pathway snapped into place. Energy rushed through it, bypassing the blockage and restoring balance to the network. The relief was immediate and palpable. The entire crystal forest seemed to pulse with renewed vitality. Slowly, carefully, Alina began to withdraw her consciousness from the deeper levels of the network. As she did, she felt her awareness returning to her physical form. The transformation that had seemed so painful earlier now felt natural, as if her body had adapted to its new state of existence. When she finally opened her eyes, she found herself standing in the crystal forest, her body surrounded by a faint aura of energy. Nyx hovered before her, their form flickering with what seemed like agitation. "How did you do that?" they demanded. No species has ever demonstrated such precise manipulation of the network on their first integration. Elena smiled, still marveling at the new sensations flowing through her transformed body. Humans are problem solvers by nature. We see patterns, we understand systems, and we find ways to improve them. It's what we do. "You could have destroyed yourself," Nyx pointed out. "The strain of such manipulation should have overwhelmed your consciousness." "Probably," Elena admitted. "But sometimes the most significant breakthroughs come from doing what should be impossible. Besides, the problem needed fixing. I couldn't just ignore it." Nyx was silent for a long moment, their energy field pulsing with complex patterns that Elena could now partially interpret as signs of deep thought and reassessment. "Perhaps," they finally said, "we have underestimated your species' potential. But this is only the beginning. Now that you can truly interact with the network, you must learn to control these abilities." Elena nodded, already thinking of the scientific implications of what she'd accomplished. "I'm ready. What's next?" But before Nyx could answer, a new sensation rippled through the energy network, a disturbance far larger and more ominous than the blockage Elena had just fixed. The crystal forest dimmed, and she felt a wave of what could only be described as fear flowing through the network. Nyx's form contracted, their light dimming. "They're coming. The tests must wait. We have a much bigger problem to deal with." Elena sensed it too, something vast and dangerous approaching Kepler 186f. Her transformation had come just in time, but for what purpose? She was about to find out. The crystal forest trembled with dark energy as massive ships emerged from hyperspace above Kepler 186f. Through her newfound connection to the planet's energy network, Elena could sense their presence like storm clouds blocking out the sun. These weren't Earth vessels or any other known species from the Galactic Alliance. They were something else entirely. The Void Hunters. Nyx's voice carried a tone Elena had never heard before. Fear. They consume energy-rich worlds, leaving nothing but husks behind. We've managed to hide from them until now, but something has changed. They've found us. Elena's mind raced with implications. My research team, the human presence here, did we lead them to you? No, Nyx replied, their form pulsing with agitation. They were drawn by the surge of power when you repaired the network blockage. The efficiency of your solution created a beacon they couldn't ignore. Guilt flooded Elena's consciousness, rippling through the energy network around her. Then I have to help fix this. What can we do? We? Nyx's form flickered. This is not your fight, human. Your transformation is incomplete. Your control still unstable. You should return to your base while you can. Elena stood her ground, her transformed body glowing with determination. I helped create this problem. Besides, my team is here too. I'm not abandoning anyone. Before Nyx could argue further, the first attack began. Dark energy beams lanced down from the ships above, striking the crystal forest. Elena felt the impact through the network. It wasn't just destroying the crystals, it was corrupting the energy itself, turning it into something cold and lifeless. They're not just destroying, Elena realized, analyzing the attack through her scientist's perspective. They're converting the energy to their own frequency, like a virus hijacking the cell's machinery. Nyx's form expanded defensively. Yes, this is how they consume worlds. They transform all energy to their dark frequency, making it impossible for life as we know it to exist. Through the network, Elena could sense other luminary gathering, preparing to defend their world. But their defensive strategies seemed simple, trying to shield the crystal formations with their own energy fields. It wasn't working. The dark energy was too powerful, too invasive. Then Elena noticed something crucial. The dark energy, it's not random. It follows a pattern, just like any other form of energy. If we could understand it. There's no time for analysis, Nix insisted. We must focus on protection. No, Elena interrupted, her mind working rapidly. Protection isn't enough. We need to fight back. And to do that, we need to understand how their energy works. Without waiting for permission, Elena extended her consciousness deeper into the network, using her human gift for pattern recognition to analyze the dark energy's behavior. It was complex, but not incomprehensible. Like a virus, it had to follow certain rules to function. Look, she projected her observations to Nix. Their energy can only convert other energy by matching its frequency first, then inducing a phase shift. But what if we could reverse that process? Nix's consciousness brushed against hers, examining her analysis. Theoretically possible, but it would require precise control over multiple energy frequencies simultaneously. Even for the luminary, such manipulation is. Then let's work together, Elena suggested. Your people have the raw power and experience with energy manipulation. We humans excel at analyzing patterns and finding creative solutions. Combined. A massive blast of dark energy interrupted them, corrupting a huge section of the crystal forest. Elena felt the pain of it through the network, like watching a beautiful ecosystem turn to ash. But it also confirmed her theory. She could see exactly how the conversion process worked. We need to act now, she urged. I can identify the precise frequency patterns they use. Can your people generate a counter-frequency if I guide them? Nix hesitated only for a moment before sending out a call through the network. Other luminary responded, their combined consciousness joining with Elena's in a way that would have been overwhelming if not for her recent transformation. Show us, they said in unison. Elena opened her mind fully, sharing everything she'd observed about the dark energy's patterns. The luminary absorbed this knowledge, and together they began to craft a response. It was like conducting an orchestra of pure energy, with Elena identifying the crucial frequencies while the luminary generated the power needed to broadcast them. The first counterwave rose from the crystal forest, meeting a beam of dark energy head-on. For a moment, both energies seemed to cancel each other out. Then, using the precise timing Elena calculated, they shifted the phase of their combined power. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The dark energy didn't just stop, it reversed, flowing back toward its source. The Void Hunter's ships reeled from the feedback, their own converted energy turning against them. It's working. Elena's excitement rippled through the network. Quick, we need to expand the effect before they can adapt. The luminary responded with unprecedented unity, following Elena's guidance to create a spreading wave of counter-energy that began to reclaim the corrupted sections of the forest. The Void Hunters launched more attacks, but each one was met with the same reversal technique. But Elena knew they couldn't maintain this defense forever. The strain of coordinating such precise energy manipulation was enormous, and she could sense the luminary's power beginning to waver. They needed something more decisive. The ships, she communicated to Nix. They're connected to their dark energy webs. If we could send a strong enough pulse up those connections, it would overload their systems, Nix finished. But channeling that much power through the network would be incredibly dangerous. The backlash could destroy everything we're trying to protect. Elena's consciousness raced through calculations, searching for a solution. Then she remembered something from her early research on Kepler 186f. The planet's pressure fluctuations weren't random. They followed a cycle. The planet's pulse, she said. If we time our attack to coincide with the peak of the pressure wave. Nix understood immediately. We could use the planet's own energy to amplify our counterwave, but timing would have to be perfect. Then let's make it perfect, Elena replied, already extending her awareness to track the approaching pressure peak. Ready? The luminary gathered their remaining strength, preparing for one final effort. Elena counted down through the network as she felt the pressure building. At exactly the right moment, she gave the signal. The combined power of an entire planet's natural energy cycle, amplified by the luminary and precisely tuned by Elena's calculations, surged upward through the dark energy connections. The Void Hunters never had a chance to react. The aftermath of the battle left Kepler 186's sky shimmering with residual energy patterns, like aurora borealis painted across alien heavens. The Void Hunters' ships had vanished in a spectacular cascade of light, their dark energy weapons turned against them by the combined might of human ingenuity and luminary power. But victory had come at a cost. Elena floated in a state between physical and energy form, her transformed consciousness still linked to the planet's network, but struggling to maintain cohesion. The massive energy surge had strained her newly developed abilities to their limit. Around her, the crystal forest pulsed with weaker light than before, many of its nodes damaged or destroyed in the conflict. "You should not have survived that," Nyx observed, their own energy form flickering as they helped stabilize Elena's fluctuating state. "The amount of power that coursed through your consciousness should have burned out any organic mind." "Maybe," Elena managed to respond, her thoughts rippling through the network. "But humans are surprisingly good at adapting to things that should kill us. It's practically our species' hobby at this point." A wave of what felt like amusement flowed from Nyx. "You make jokes even now. Your species is truly bizarre. We find humor helps us cope with impossible situations," Elena explained. Then, more seriously, "How bad is the damage to the network?" Nyx's consciousness expanded, assessing the crystal forest. "Extensive, but not irreparable. The Void Hunters corrupted nearly a third of our energy nodes, but your reversal technique didn't just stop them. It showed us how to reclaim and purify corrupted energy, something we never thought possible." Other luminary began to gather around them, their forms creating a spectacular light show in the damaged forest. Elena could sense their consciousness touching hers through the network, carrying emotions of gratitude, curiosity, and lingering surprise at what they had witnessed. "Your method of analyzing energy patterns," one of them communicated. "It's unlike anything in our experience. How did you know it would work?" Elena considered how to explain the human scientific method to beings of pure energy. "We humans have a saying, 'Knowledge is power.' But for us, it's not just about accumulating information. It's about understanding patterns, making connections, and most importantly, imagining new possibilities. We look at problems from angles that others might miss because we're so used to having to work around our limitations. Limitations that we once thought made you weak," another luminary admitted. "We were wrong." "Not entirely," Elena corrected them. "Physically, humans are weaker than many species. We're not as naturally adapted to space travel as some. We can't survive in many environments without technology, and we certainly can't manipulate energy the way you do. But we've learned to turn those weaknesses into strengths. Because we're not naturally gifted with these abilities, we have to truly understand them to use them." Nyx moved closer, their energy field gently supporting Elena's still unstable form. "You speak wisdom. Our natural abilities sometimes blind us to alternative approaches. We see the flow of energy so clearly that we never thought to question its fundamental patterns the way you did." Elena felt a sudden surge of excitement. The scientist in her couldn't help but see the possibilities. "Think of what we could learn from each other. Your people's natural connection to energy, combined with human analytical methods, we could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. Are you proposing an alliance?" Nyx asked, their tone curious. "I'm proposing an exchange," Elena replied. "Knowledge for knowledge. We help you understand new ways to analyze and manipulate energy. You help us better understand the fundamental forces of the universe. Together, we might discover things neither of our species could find alone." The luminary conferred among themselves, their energy patterns shifting rapidly as they communicated. Elena waited, using the time to focus on stabilizing her transformed state. She was beginning to understand how to maintain the balance between her physical form and her energy consciousness, another example of human adaptability. Finally, Nyx spoke for their people. We accept, but there is something else we must offer. You have proven that humans, despite their apparent limitations, are capable of achieving harmony with the energy network. We would share this knowledge with others of your kind who wish to learn. Alina's consciousness pulsed with joy at the possibility, but her scientific caution kicked in. It's dangerous knowledge. The transformation nearly killed me, and managing this state isn't easy. Which is precisely why it should be studied properly, Nyx responded. Together, we can develop safer methods, better understanding of the process. Your human perspective might help us see aspects of our own nature that we've taken for granted. The crystal forest around them began to pulse more strongly, as if responding to the growing sense of possibility. Alina could feel her own energy stabilizing as she adapted more fully to her transformed state. The damage from the battle was still evident, but already she could see signs of recovery. Crystal nodes reaching out to establish new connections, energy patterns shifting to accommodate changed pathways. Besides, Nyx added, with what Alina now recognized as their version of humor, it seems we were wrong about humans being too weak to satisfy our species. You've proven to be quite satisfying in ways we never expected. Alina laughed, her amusement sending ripples of light through the network. Just wait until you meet more of us. If you think I'm stubborn and unpredictable, you're in for quite a surprise. As if on cue, her communication device, somehow still functional despite everything, crackled to life. Dr. Santos, Alina, are you out there? We've detected massive energy surges in your area, and, well, you're not going to believe what our sensors are showing. Alina smiled, both physically and energetically. Actually, she replied, I think you'll find what I have to tell you even harder to believe. But trust me, it's going to change everything. Around her, the crystal forest pulsed with new life, its network now carrying the combined energy signatures of two very different species learning to work as one. The Void Hunters had sought to consume this world's energy, never imagining that their attack would forge an alliance that would reshape humanity's place in the cosmos. And it all began because one alien species thought humans were too weak to matter. As Alina prepared to explain to her research team why their lead scientist was now partially energy-based, she couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Sometimes, the greatest strength lies not in power itself, but in the wisdom to know how to use it, a lesson both humans and Luminary had learned together.